Welcome to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast, where you can share your story judgment-free. We are here to guide you down the road to redemption and restoration. Remember, healing comes when secrets are shared in safe spaces. Now, here are your hosts, Anthony and Melissa.
Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. I am your host, Anthony.
Hello, I'm your co-host, Melissa.
We have a pretty exciting episode for you tonight. It's one that is continuing with our theme that we have decided to launch a podcast on, and that is, do you have a secret that you need to get off your chest? And so I think you'll find tonight that this person somehow stumbled upon our podcast and is now prompted, moved maybe, to get this stuff off their chest. So we're going to get to that in just a second. Okay, before we get to tonight's podcast, we just want to remind you about our other podcast. That podcast is entitled The Struggle Series. And that podcast is designed for those of you who are lovers of the paranormal, the horror genre, maybe you like thrillers, kind of that twist and turns type storytelling. All of the books in the Struggle series are there, narrated by me, as well as a series of short stories kind of woven in between. And then, of course, we just launched our new novel entitled Friend. If you are listening to this, tomorrow we will be releasing chapter 3 of Friend. So we hope that you tune into that. That podcast can be found in the same place you're listening to this podcast. So it's definitely a different feel than this podcast. That's kind of what our bread and butter was. In the beginning was the horror kind of.
I love the stories. They're great.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're creative.
I appreciate that. And hopefully everybody
Entertaining.
else does as well. So please check that out. Also, if you're new to this podcast, we probably should take the time to specifically explain what we do here. As we said just a couple seconds ago, we exist to help those who are struggling with a secret, maybe something that they did once upon a time that's just continuing to eat them alive. If you're a Christian, you may call that a sin. If you're non-Christian, you may call that a mistake or a crime or whatever term you want to use. But I think all of us have a secret, Melissa. I think that we are all holding at least 1 or 200, but I think we hold on to it. And depending on the level of the secret, sometimes it may be something that pops up in our heads every now and then. Man, I wish I wouldn't have done that.
Right.
But then again, some of us have really gone to an extreme and done something that we just regret. Something that once a week or every other day or something just pops in our head and we just can't believe we did it. It may have harmed other people, caused a bunch of strife.
Oh, yeah.
But nobody realized it was us. And we've gotten away with it to this point, but our conscience won't let us get away with it. And so we need a place to tell that. And so that's why the Grace for the Unlovable podcast exists, for you to be able to have a place to tell your story judgment-free. Now, the term Grace for the Unlovable comes because sometimes when we blow it that big, we feel unlovable. Or sometimes when we've been busted, society deems us unlovable. Regardless, that's not true. All of us can be redeemed. All of us can be restored. But we just have to be able to be honest about it. Because if we look at it in real terms, most of us, even if we are busted, are never going to really tell the whole story.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you start talking, you'll feel and see the judgment. Even on our closest friends in our family, we know that they are looking at us differently. And so that causes us to clam up. So as you'll find out, like today, in today's letter, this is a place for you to just be anonymous, tell your story, get it out there off your chest so you can try to move on with your life and realize that there is grace for unlovable people, right?
Yes, there is.
Now, let's just take a brief moment. And I don't want to spend too much time up front because we kind of have been spending a whole lot of time up front. And sometimes they say that listeners will tune out if we don't get to it. So let's try to get to it. But I do want to recap last week. Last week's letter was pretty heavy.
Yes, it was.
We had a woman that basically confessed that she's been carrying the secret that her child is not her husband's, and that she's pretty confident that it is the result of a affair she had as she was getting married to her new husband, an affair with an old fling. And of course, just like fate would have it, let's have one more fling, and then it results in a child.
In a child.
I did have some correspondence with her in between last week's episode and the recording of this one. As we discussed, she's very grateful that she's able to get it off her chest, and grateful that we gave her kind of some avenues to look at, but we don't
Mhm.
give advice here.
Right.
And so what we are doing with her is just trying to continue to support her.
Mhm.
She has our permission to continue to reach out, but she definitely has some decisions to make.
Mhm.
And regardless of what she does, we're here for her.
Mhm.
And I know some of you listeners, we've had some feedback as well. We even ran into some people who have listened, and they have said, like, why didn't you just tell her to just get it off her chest and go tell somebody? Or why did you tell her to just keep it a secret until she has to, and kind of anywhere in between.
Mhm.
And the reality of it is that that's not what we're here to do. We're just here to support her. She
Mhm.
knows what's weighing on her heart, and she
Mhm.
knows which way she's being pulled, but let's give her some grace, like
Mhm.
we say in the Grace for the
Aggressive.
Unlovable podcast, because
Yeah.
that decision is easy for us to sit on the sidelines and make, but it's
Mhm.
hard when it's you.
Oh, yeah.
And
That's
so
a
we'll just
big one.
continue to pray for her. If you're the
Mhm.
praying type people listening, we ask that you continue to pray for
Mhm.
her as well. And we also appreciate that a lot of you that reached out were very non-judgmental. We even had
Exactly, they were. I
we
was
had one
yeah.
young man saying, "I don't think she
She
did anything wrong. We've all had connections, and we're not here to
She's okay. She didn't do anything wrong.
exactly." So we just want you to continue to be supportive of the people that
Mhm.
call in. And
Yeah.
lastly, speaking of that, we are in need of listener stories and or letters, right?
Mhm.
This podcast is brand new. We
Mhm.
don't have a $1 zillion marketing budget because we're just two people doing this in one of the bedrooms of our home, right? So
Mhm.
we want this to always be grassroots like the other podcasts. We're not trying to be professional podcasters. We're just
Mhm.
trying to reach a specific audience.
Mhm.
And so we need stories. And we're kind of on the at a place where we just have a couple in the hopper,
Mhm.
but we want a whole big group of stories, because there may be episodes where we have a short story and then we might be able to do two in one
And
episode.
mhm.
So don't feel like we're just going to do one at a time. And so if you have a story of your own, if you want to write us a letter, or if you want to be on the podcast, it all starts out with correspondence
Mhm.
by reaching out to us at gracefortheunlovable@gmail.com. We will definitely respond to everybody. And if
Mhm.
you're not sure if you want to write a letter or do an interview, just start a correspondence
With
with
us.
us. We'll
Mhm.
talk to you about it, whatever feels more comfortable.
Mhm.
Again, gracefortheunlovable@gmail.com. Before we get to tonight's episode, let's hit you with a quick disclaimer. Although I practiced as a licensed therapist and an ordained minister, this podcast is not a substitute for clinical advice. This is not therapy. This podcast is for prayer and emotional support only. If you feel like you're going to harm yourself or others, please call 911 or reach out by text or phone to 988. This podcast is anonymous for a reason. We're not here to judge you or incriminate you. Please keep the names of anybody you've harmed out of your story. Oh, and if you're not remorseful, you're not ready for this podcast. Just reach out to us at a different time when you're ready to make some changes. Now, let's get ready for this episode of the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. Okay, now that we have that out of the way, let's try to jump into tonight's episode, Melissa. For those of you who are listening, if you do hear some slight rain in the background,
Just started
it just started raining here.
pouring
Most of the
down.
noise reduction software will take that out. But just in case it sounds like there's something going on in the background, we are very limited on time this week, so we have to record now. So we hope that you can maybe enjoy the soothing sounds of
So
the
the rain,
raindrops while we're
exactly. But
talking. But
don't let it make you fall asleep.
exactly. Especially because tonight's letter is one that I think will be that catches your attention, right?
Mhm.
And I feel for this guy because it looks like he's turned his life around already, but
Mhm.
he's one of those people that's still holding that old school secret that he
Mhm.
just can't seem to get rid of. And
That one
so
thing.
and so
Yeah.
what we want to do is just support him in that. So We're going to read this letter, and as usual, we're going to read a little bit of it. We'll pause and make some commentary. And at the end, we're going to discuss it. But again, I would ask all listeners, put yourself in this man's shoes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
Okay.
We're going to call him D because that's what he called himself. So
Okay.
letter D, right? He says, "Hey guys, I just found your podcast and decided to give it a try. I have listened to all the episodes, and it's making me think that it's time for me to tell my secret. I have to tell you that I'm not a religious guy. I don't hate Christianity, but I just don't believe in it. That doesn't mean that I'm not open to your opinion, because when I tell you what I did, you might think that I need God to save me." And I appreciate him writing in, even though
Mm-hmm.
he's not a Christian, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like he's,
Yeah. And being very respectful. So thank you, D.
yeah, we appreciate that very, very much.
Very nice. Very polite.
I'm not going to give you my name, but you can call me D. I don't mind if you put this on your show, just don't release my email or anything. And I
Of course
appreciate
not.
him saying that. And people who are just listening for the first time may wonder, we are going to do everything we can to make sure you can't be identified.
Mm-hmm.
If something in the story
Mm-hmm.
reaches somebody out there in the universe and they might think they know who you are, we can't control that.
Mm-hmm.
But we are definitely never going. You want us to call you D, we're going to call you D. One of our first letters was no name, and we
No
just
name.
called her anonymous.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll do whatever we can for that. Definitely will never release your email, because this person's email might be indicative of who he is. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times people, I think, create a fake email just to send it to us.
Yeah.
And I'm
But
cool
they
with
can
that too.
trust us. Yeah.
Yeah, you can trust us.
Because I'm working with a young gentleman. Well, he may be early 40s, and he's thinking about doing an interview, but I think he's afraid of people maybe figuring out who he is, maybe by his voice and some of his story. But I told him that we could
change
can
it.
change his
Watch
voice.
this.
We can change his voice a little bit, but can it sound more echoey?
Sure, I have so many different.
See, it's easy.
Yeah.
So we can change your voice, no problem. Okay. So now that we got that out of the way, let's jump into the meat of this guy's letter.
Okay.
Okay. What I did happened about 20 years ago. What I did was terrible. It caused a really good person a lot of pain, and I don't think that there is any way I could ever make it right. I used to think about it every day. As time has gone by, I only think about it maybe once a week. The problem is, when I think about it, it still eats me alive.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I've had a secret that got exposed, and
Mm-hmm.
there was almost a relief, because it does eat you alive. You're
Mhm.
thinking about it constantly. And people may not even have a clue about it, but and it's kind of working its way from the inside out.
Inside out, yeah.
And so I get what he's saying. He says, when I tell you I hate myself, those are not just words. I never realized that what I did would lead to somebody suffering, but that's exactly what happened. You see, about 20 years ago, I worked for a woman who had a small shop. She was so good to me. She used to tell me that I was the best employee, even though I was the newest employee. Her business was doing well, but there was one day of the year where she made a lot of money. We're talking tens of thousands of dollars. I was in a pretty bad financial crisis. The job paid pretty good, but I was in some serious debt. Now I could tell you a big sob story, but to put it simply, I decided to rob the store on the night of her big day. I knew she would not make her deposit until the morning to avoid carrying that much money around at night. Let's stop for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So when I read this, and maybe that's why we do this podcast, right? Because we kind of think a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
When I read this, I think of the times I've been in financial crisis.
Mm-hmm. Exactly what I was thinking.
And I think of that. I always think of that kind of hypothetical story that people will put around that said, if you were in a financial crisis and you found a wallet, would you turn it in or would you keep the money? Because if you're not in a financial crisis, you'd probably instantly turn the wallet in. that little metaphorical little analogy that people use is to get you to think about, when would somebody contradict what they know is right and do what is wrong? And I personally believe all of us are capable of doing something wrong in the right circumstances. So I have some empathy for him right off the bat, even though you can kind of see where this is going, right? And so when I would ask the audience to do the same,
And if he was really young, but if he's in that much debt, maybe 25.
Yeah, it's 20 years ago.
20 years ago, if he was college or in anything, car problems.
Yeah, who knows?
Need a new transmission.
Yeah, who knows?
In their truck.
So yeah, like in our truck, right? So so we think about, if we're into this empathy thing, we think about what it would like to be him. And that's kind of where I want everybody to go before we keep going. Okay. He says, I had about a month from when I decided to do it until that night. So it sounds like he had a month to plan this. And probably he was also, should I do it or should I not do it? Right.
Because she's been so good to me. What if I get busted?
Yeah.
You know.
So he said, I had to come up with the plan because I didn't have a key to the store. I would actually have to break in. So he was going to actually have to do a burglary. Now the criminal in me says, well, that's what you'd want to do, because you don't want it to look like somebody in the store did it, but we'll keep going. All right. So, but that is not how it went. Instead, I realized that the employee who locked up at night had a crush on me. Now watch this, Melissa. I hate saying this out loud, but I decided to start flirting with her to get close to her. My plan was to find a way to take her keychain when she wasn't looking. I would make a key and bring it back before she would even know. So now there's plotting, right? It's, but again, the financial need, the I would call it the momentum we build when we're in these moments. We're fighting ourselves on what's right or wrong, but we've kind of already decided we're going to do it. So then the craftiness of the human being kicks in, right? So he says, one night I hung out after work while she was closing. When she wasn't looking, I snatched her keys. Then I told her I would go get her some dinner. She was happy and didn't notice. I stopped by a store that makes keys and made a copy. I put the keys back and then waited. So he took the keys, went to Home Depot or...
Perfect timing.
Yeah.
It's like everything's working.
She's not going to be using the keys while she's at work. And then, decided to go use the excuse, oh, let me go get you some dinner. What do you want? Do you want some Taco Bell? Do you want some McDonald's? Type of thing. So, I get it. There's some plotting going on. He's motivated now.
Right.
Now, on the night of the big sale, I clocked out at 6 p.m. I went home and waited. I borrowed my roommate's car and went back to the store later that night. I parked about 3 blocks away and walked up to the back of the strip mall. I hung around the back and waited until I saw my chance. When nobody was around, I opened the door with the key and went in. I locked it behind me and got to work. The store had no cameras and no alarms. It was actually easy. And like in today's day and age, everybody's got cameras. But 20 years ago, I can see this, right? So,
especially a small business, it's expensive to run a business. A lot of people think that if you own a business that you have money. You're probably more in debt when you own the business because you're responsible for everything.
Most businesses function on a very low profit margin. Like restaurants function on like a 3%.
3%, 1%. Yeah.
Yeah. So you have to make, $1 zillion to even make profit, right?
And if they have 4 employees,
so she's scraping
utility, by. Exactly.
And from what I understand, there's one night of the year, and I was racking my brain what that. It depends what the store is and what that one night of the year. She just sells a bunch of stuff, so she makes the bulk of her money probably. Maybe if you're honest, she makes her profit on that day, and then the rest of the time the store is just getting by. So, I get it. He said it was easy because there was no cameras, right? So I spent about 10 minutes in the store making it look like someone tore everything apart looking for the money. I knew exactly where the money was. I waited in the dark until I saw nobody around. My plan was to break the door so it looked like a burglary. That didn't work out. There was a group of people that were on the balcony of their apartment. I knew that if I broke the glass, they would see me.
Mm-hmm.
So he had to kind of alter his plans. And I
Mm-hmm.
would say, like,
He had to been scared, like so
yeah,
nervous. I'd have been.
that's kind
I
of
would
where
have
my
been,
brain is going. Like, not
heart
like
would have been racing and sweating.
judgmental people are judging us right now for being so empathetic, but that's what we do here, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're trying to be human with
We're
this
human,
guy.
yeah.
And so yeah, he's probably terrified, and I can kind of almost put myself like he's looking out the window going, I got to do something else, because if I break this, and maybe he waited there for a long time to see if they were going to go inside, but if they were out there partying or whatever the
Mm-hmm.
case may be, he's either going to be there for hours or he's got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so he decided something else. So he says, well, actually, he says, I waited a long time, but realized that the longer I stayed, the bigger chance I could get caught. So I just left and left the door open. I made it back to the car and drove home with my heart beating so fast, I thought I was going to die. Oh, by the way, my roommate didn't realize I took his car. So he had planned this out quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I took the money and hid it in the basement of our rental home. I found a spot that nobody would think to look. So he already had a place where the money was going to sit until this blew over.
Mm-hmm.
He said, I didn't sleep at all. I just waited. The next morning, I got a call from my boss to come down to the store. I thought for sure I was busted, but I knew that I had to make it look like I had nothing to do with it. If I didn't show up, I would look guilty.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it hit me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you get the call, I need you to come down to the store,
Mm-hmm.
my first instinct would have been, I'm busted.
Right.
Because why are they
Exactly.
calling me into the store?
Mm-hmm.
But he had the wherewithal to say, they're probably calling us all in. And if I don't show up, I look guilty.
Mm-hmm.
So he goes. He says, when I got there, the cops were there. She only had 4 employees, and we were all there. They took us outside one by one and talked to us. I told them that I got off at 6 and had been home all night. I found out later that they talked to my roommate, and he said that I was home all night. He never even knew I left,
Mm-hmm.
which was part of the plan. I'm going to wait till he sleeps. I'm going to take his car.
Mm-hmm.
The part that sucks the most is that when it was over, my boss pulled me aside and told me that I was the only one she trusted.
Yikes.
Ouch. Ouch, ouch, ouch. He says she talked to me like a friend. I still hate that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just going to let that sit.
Mm-hmm.
The,
Yikes.
the
Yeah.
cops basically focused on the girl that I took the keys from. She swore up and down that she locked the door. Good news is she never got arrested. Bad news is that she got fired. My boss believed that she either left it open on purpose for one of her friends to steal, or she forgot to lock it and it was still her fault.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's crazy? I stayed working there for another year. I watched how my boss struggled because of that money. I watched her file an insurance claim and go through hell to try and get her money back. They basically blamed her. I talked to that girl that took the blame for a while, but eventually stopped talking to her. I tried to act like we could still date, but I felt so bad that I got her fired. I never even really liked her anyway.
Mm-hmm.
I can be honest and say I've never stolen anything again in my life. It was so stressful. And I believe that
Mm-hmm.
because it
Mm-hmm.
sounds like this is eating him alive. He's not a career
Criminal.
because people who do this, they don't have this kind of
Mm-hmm.
a
They're in and
guilt.
out. Yep.
Mm-hmm. I was so afraid to spend any of that money. I was worried that the cops were watching. And I would think that would be something they would do too, is
Mm-hmm.
check bank accounts, make sure you're not making big deposits or something like that. But I've never been there. So eventually I paid off the debts with that money and then moved on. I never got caught, but I kind of wish I did. And I get that.
Mm-hmm.
I get, because it might be better to have this off your chest than still on it. He says, this is like a nightmare that I can't get rid of. So many times I wanted to try and find that lady who I robbed and tell her I was sorry. She eventually closed that store, and I have no idea where she is. I'm sure I could find her if I wanted. I just can't imagine trying to own it. Could I still be arrested for that? I could never face her. But if I don't say something, will this eat me alive for the rest of my life? I do feel better telling somebody. I know people say this a lot, but I honestly have never told a soul about this until now.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee he hasn't,
Right.
because it's in his head.
Mm-hmm.
There's been no outlet. He says, I know you said you don't give advice, but let me know what you think. Thanks for letting me share my story. I hope to hear this on your show. And if anybody listening has been through this before, I would love to know what they have to say. Peace, D. Okay, Melissa.
Well, D.
You jump in first.
Well, the part in the letter when he was saying that he stayed with the company a year or so after the robbery, we'll call it what it is.
Uh-huh.
So I think that was God's way of kind of making him see what he did and to see how it affected the person, the lady that he, stole that he robbed, that he took the money from, and to see how small businesses really struggle. Like I said earlier, people assume that you have business, that you have money. I mean, like you said, it's a very low profit. It's just your dream to own your own business and to have a cupcake, or if she made Christmas ornaments or something like that,
Yeah.
that would be like once a year. When I had my store, I worked, one of the stores was the biggest time they made their money was during the holidays. She did handcraft Christmas ornaments.
Wow.
Could make $20,000-$50,000. So they really only worked a couple of months out of the year because they make so much money. I mean, you don't sell Christmas stuff in July. I think they had like a July sale, but
Yeah.
but maybe that was a way of helping him not do it again.
I think
in a
so.
sense, you know what I mean? Kind
I
of
do.
like to see, how it affected the lady. And then the poor girl that got fired, thank goodness she didn't get arrested, but she got fired for no reason, something that she really didn't do.
Yeah.
And then to have to pick yourself up from that. And then how do you find another job? If she was there for a year or two,
Yeah, you're definitely not getting a reference
from her. Yeah. Especially, from stealing. Now I'm going to share something real quick.
Okay.
When I was 19,
Okay.
just
It's
moved
getting
out.
juicy.
Yep. Just moved out on my own. And I worked, I'll say an auto parts store, and, living on my own. And it was $20, but $20 back in 1994 could have been 2 meals for me,
Yeah. Of course.
or, my bus pass, back and forth to work. So was working in the store. This guy came up and said, hey, I'm in a rush. Here's $20, because he didn't want to wait in line. Here's $20. Is you could keep the change or give it to the manager or whatever. And so the guy left. And I'm thinking like, well, nobody noticed, nobody sees. Then I'll just keep this $20 because I need money to take the bus to go back and forth to work, because I didn't have a car at the time.
Sure.
I was riding my bike or whatever, just young and trying to be independent, make it on my own. And I got busted.
Oh.
Because they did the serial number. It was one of those shopping secret shoppers. So they called me into the office and they asked me, because we had to wear aprons. So I had it in
I didn't
my
know
pocket.
this, people, by the way. So
And so they put me in the back, very discreet. They didn't embarrass me or anything. And they, asked me if the guy came up with the item, did I ring him up? And I told them that I did. And they asked for the receipt. And of course I didn't have the receipt. And I finally told them that I didn't ring it up. And I pulled it out of my pocket and I gave it to them, and they matched the serial number from the $20 bill that they set me up, or any employee. It wasn't me.
yeah, it could have been whoever.
It could have been whomever. And I got fired because from stealing. And I've never stole anything else again in my life.
I
So
believe that.
and I'm so glad that it happened, because what if I would have gotten away with it? Would I have continued, to steal $20 here, $40 there? You know what I mean? Like, I'm glad that God stopped me at that age and like, hey, this is wrong. But it was a big company, but still wrong to do.
Sure. I'm tracking what you're saying, that sometimes God, if you believe in that, it will kind of, like with him, leave you in that place, or with you,
Mm-hmm.
have you in that place, because it's going to catch your attention
Mm-hmm.
and prevent this from being a lifelong struggle.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I
Mm-hmm.
get that. And I'm sure lots of people listening.
Mm-hmm.
You know what popped in my head? And again, we are not trying to rescue anybody here, but I
Mm-hmm.
just want to kind of give a perspective. Theft is a crazy, crazy thing,
Mm-hmm.
because I hesitate to say it's different, but there is a difference, because people can easily justify theft based on their perception of value.
Mm-hmm.
So you can have somebody who will be watching the news and watch a guy that got busted working at Walmart that stole a TV by wheeling it out the back door, and his friends put it in a truck and drove it away.
Mm-hmm.
And that person will say, "What a scumbag."
Mm-hmm.
And then that person has 2 reams of copy paper at his home office that he stole from his work,
Mm-hmm.
because he has looked at the storage cabinet and says, there is
The nice markers, the
yeah,
good pens.
exactly what I'm saying. Like I can think of like our day job, and
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to confess to the world's biggest crime here, but I could think of our day job like sometimes we have to leave a note for the people who come in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and they have a nice Sharpie on the desk. There's been times where I said, I'm taking this, right? And, is that right or is that wrong? It's kind of a jerk thing to do, but
Mm-hmm.
why do I do it? Because I know what's in that stock supply cabinet
Mm-hmm.
is 500 more of those. Now, I'm not taking boxes of them, but you see, so we
Taking
do
one.
that,
Yeah.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm not making excuses for you. What I'm trying to do is get the audience to
Mm-hmm.
kind of put their mind here where you were.
Mm-hmm.
So when you think about something like this, it creates, when a need is created, human beings have this unbelievably resourceful way of getting them met.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I read in this letter is not the judgment of him. What I read is the need that created this series of events.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where I want you to kind of focus, D, because this is what's consuming you, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we choose to do something like this, we don't make one bad decision.
Mm-hmm.
We make a series of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time in my therapy days, I've done for decades, but there was a period of time where the agency that I owned did a lot of DUI counseling.
Mm-hmm.
And I would tell some of the clients there, because they would say, all I did was make a mistake, man. I'm not an alcoholic, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, no, you didn't make a mistake. You made a series of decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the bar. One decision.
Mm-hmm.
How am I going to get there? Well, I'll just
Drive.
drive, but I won't drink that much. There's another decision. Well, I might drink a little too much, but I'll call an Uber or a cab or whatever. And you realize that by the time you got in the car to drive home, you had made 15 decisions,
Mm-hmm.
not one.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to tell them, DUI is the only crime in the world where they advertise for you not to do it. Have you ever seen a billboard that says, don't rob banks, right?
Right.
But there's billboards and radio commercials, they have the slogans,
Mm-hmm.
Don't drink and
Don't drink
drive,
and
stay
drive.
alive,
Mm-hmm.
blah, 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 right?
Call a Uber, call a something. Remember back in the 90s when they first,
Yeah.
like when you,
Yeah. There's even law firms that on New Year's Day have an open tab with cab companies
mm-hmm. Oh yeah, they do in some
that will
cities.
pay for you to not drink and drive,
Mm-hmm.
because it's their way of paying back society because the rest of the year they make money helping DUI clients in court. So same with this, Dee.
Mm-hmm.
You made a series of choices, and you know this. We're not preaching to the choir here. You know that you were in this momentum.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look back at this in your mind, you are thinking of the whole thing because the moral dilemma that you had while it was happening. Each one of these decisions, you were wrestling yourself. Again, Dee, I don't know you, but I could tell you that you are not a thief, but you stole.
Mm-hmm.
Thieves would not think twice about this. They would have learned from this heist. So, what I want to do is kind of address maybe something you said at the beginning, where you said you don't really believe in God, but maybe you need a God to save you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we kind of want to avoid all the religion stuff here. So this is not the part D where I go, open your Bible to this page so you can see how stealing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care if you're a Christian or not. Your conscience, your being believes stealing is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
That's why this is eating you alive. So we don't need to do that.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to call that out. Now, let's address what God does with thieves. Okay. So if you're a non-Christian and you wonder why we do a podcast like this, where we're not being religious, but we're still kind of letting people tell their story,
Mm-hmm.
it's because we believe that the real Jesus, the real gospel, if you will, not the judgmental one where the religiosity rules the roost. We believe that Jesus died for everybody and his grace is for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
What Christianity does, if we're not careful, and I always pick on Christians too much, but what Christianity does is kind of makes a hierarchy of sin. And so you need to be like me, oh sinner, because I don't sin like you. I might do these little sins, but since you came to me with this dilemma, let me tell you how big of a sinner you are and how you need to be more like me, including pastors, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the big dog pastors of our time that you would watch on a television program or write these big New York Times bestsellers, some of those guys are the people that drive me the most nuts because when they talk and they tell you, well, I speak from authority because I have been ordained by God to do this. And I don't necessarily dispute that, but then you listen to them, they talk as if they're perfect. And I'm like, let me talk to your kids for 5 minutes, right? And so we're not going to do that here because I can tell you stories in the Bible, and I'm going to tell you one, D. There's this guy, his name was Zacchaeus, right? And they say he was a little tiny guy, a little short guy. I'm a short guy too, so I think he was even shorter than me. But he was a guy that was a thief, but he was a non-guilty thief. He had no compassion. This is what he did. He was actually a tax collector. Now, he was Jewish, but he collected money for the Roman government. So his job was to tax Jewish people, get the money and give it to the Roman government. But much like corruption happens even in our government today, Zacchaeus found a way to take some off the top, right? And so pretty soon he was a very wealthy man and of course hated by everybody. Okay. And when I say everybody, everybody, because you imagine, you know what the tax is, right? So like right now, people just did their taxes a month ago. So you find out what your tax bracket is, right? And so if your accountant comes and says, you made 80,000 and you owe 40,000 in taxes, you'll say, wait a minute, I don't pay 50%. Now, back in those days,
10%, yeah.
Zacchaeus was the IRS. And they knew what the Roman government wanted from them. But when they came to Zacchaeus, he would say, no, you need this. And if they pushed, he would simply call the Roman guards to come and put you in prison. And then take your stuff, leaving your wife and your children orphaned and widowed or
Mhm.
left to die or whatever the case may be. So you paid it.
Mhm.
And so they knew he was a crook. They knew he was a thief. But one day, Dee, this Jesus guy, this rabbi that was sweeping the
Mhm.
countryside, grabbing attention because he was preaching differently.
Mhm.
And people were starting to say, this guy's preaching like he is the Messiah that us Jewish people might be looking for.
Mhm.
But he's also kind of controversial because he's saying he's God. And isn't that blasphemous? And so just imagine the talk of this guy, but
Mhm.
everybody wanted to see him. The only thing that I could equate it to, and I hate doing this, but like if Taylor Swift walked down the street right now,
Mhm.
people would come out of their houses just to look at her, right? To
Mhm.
say, I don't like Taylor Swift, by the way. You can print this and copyright it. I don't care. It's just not my cup of tea, right? But somebody that famous, right,
Oh,
is
Michael
walking down the
Jackson.
street, Michael Jackson or whatever. So even Zacchaeus wanted to get a look.
Mhm.
Now the Bible says, and you can read this if you like, you can just, just Google story of Zacchaeus and you'll find it. So here's the deal. This guy is waiting like a parade coming through, right? So, when you go to a parade, you kind of all line up on the street
On
and
this,
wait for
yeah.
him to walk by. Maybe he'll look at me. Maybe
Mhm.
he'll say hi to me. Maybe he'll even stop and talk to me. So maybe I have like a request. Maybe I have a prayer request. And so I'm a woman whose kid is sick and I'm going to be standing there waiting for him so I could just maybe grab his attention and
Touch
say,
him,
please
yeah.
heal my kid, right?
Mhm.
And Zacchaeus is too short to get a view. So he climbs a tree.
Mhm.
So literally picture this in your head. There's like rows of people waiting to see Jesus, and there's
Mhm.
this little thief in a tree. And watch this. Jesus says, hey, you, get down from there. I'm going to go have lunch at your house.
Mhm.
Dee, I want you to picture that in your mind. How pissed were
Wow.
all those people?
People.
I'm good. I try to follow the laws. I keep the Sabbath. I make my sacrifices at the temple every year. I
Mhm.
even pay my taxes on time. I work hard. I pray
Great.
often.
Mhm.
And during all of the Jewish festivals, I follow them to a T. Why are you going to go eat with this thief?
Thief.
Now, the Bible says that Jesus goes and kicks it with this dude.
Mhm.
And we don't know the details of the story. We don't know every word for word because it wasn't a tape recorder playing, so we could go back and listen to exactly what Jesus said. But we know that when the meeting was over, Zacchaeus was transformed
Mhm.
and he actually gave money back on top of money
Mhm.
because he was not only stealing, but this dude knew where to invest and land and make money. So he was very rich. So
Mhm.
he paid money back with interest to people. And what he had left, he gave away.
Mhm.
Now, what religious people want you to believe, Dee, which is maybe why you've never really thought about this God or this
Mhm.
Christianity thing, is because if you try to listen to any religious people, they would tell you that Jesus must have went into that meeting and said, listen, Zacchaeus, I called you out of the tree because I know you're a dirty, filthy thief. And if you don't stop doing it, I'm going to send you to hell.
Mhm.
Now get out there and make it right. But that's not what happens
Mhm.
because we read in other stories of Jesus that he will call out sin, go and sin no more. But first he builds relationship and he shows them what grace is.
Mhm.
Because imagine if Zacchaeus has been called out of this tree and he's sitting across the table, like Melissa and I are sitting across the table from each other,
Mhm.
and he's starting to realize this is the Son of God,
That is talking to me, having lunch with me.
and he's not mad at me.
Yes. Grace.
And he sees through me and still loves me and
Mhm.
accepts me. He knows what I've done.
Mhm.
Just
All
like
of
the
it.
woman at the well that we talked about in previous
Mhm.
episodes. Jesus told her what she did, and she wasn't offended or scared or wounded. She didn't become defensive. She
Mhm.
actually went to the people that were judging her that she was afraid to even make eye contact with. She actually went and grabbed them and took them to Jesus.
Mhm.
So this is what Jesus does with thieves
Mhm.
who come to him, who encounter him, maybe is a better
Mhm.
word. Now, in a previous episode, we played a little excerpt of a little sermonette by a man named Alistair Begg.
Mhm.
And you say you've listened to the episodes, Dee. So remember in that where Alistair is talking about this guy goes to heaven and they're saying, well, who told you you could come? Because weren't you just on that cross down there? And the man says, the man on the middle cross told me I could come.
Mhm.
That man was a thief
Mhm.
who was sentenced to death. And yet, when he encountered this Jesus, he made it,
Mhm.
right? So, as we do, let's kind of put that as the light source onto what we're going to talk about next.
Mhm.
You have a couple things you can do. You could find this woman and tell her.
Mhm.
Now, I'm going to stop here real quick because when I read the letter, I wasn't sure who he was talking about because he said, I ruined somebody's life. So was it the store owner or was it the woman that got
With the
fired
keys,
or
yeah.
was it both? I don't know, but maybe he meant to say I ruined a couple lives, but I'm assuming he's focusing on the store owner, but
Mhm.
I could be wrong. So, but let's say you found her and you told her that's an option. Would you
Mhm.
feel better? This is what I want our listeners to know. Remember, I'm a therapist, even though I'm not your therapist. Remember the disclaimer we played at the beginning of the show. This is not therapeutic advice, but remember, I am a therapist and I've worked with a lot of people who have had victims of some sort.
Mhm.
And sometimes people in therapy work on like victim empathy type things.
Mhm.
What you can ever do as a person who has wronged somebody is expect them to have the reaction that you want them to have,
Mhm.
especially if you want them to tell you it's okay so you can feel better.
Mhm.
So if you tell her, if that's something you choose, I can say that it may not go the way you think it's going to go, good or bad.
Mhm.
But if you go into it with the expectation that, yes, she's going to be mad and hate me, but at least I'll feel better, I don't know.
Right,
You might feel
exactly.
worse.
Mhm.
She might tell you that the reason she closed her store is because she could never quite recover.
Mhm.
And she has had bitterness in her heart the whole time. And then now what you thought you were going to accomplish is worse.
And open those wounds up
Back up
for
again.
her again.
Sure.
Yeah.
So, but regardless, I think if we do decide to tell somebody that we've wronged, I think if we're honest, there might be a part of us that hopes they go, you know what? Thank you so much for being honest. I always wondered who that was, but you're forgiven.
Yeah.
Now go and sin no more and be happy with your life. I doubt that's going to happen
Mhm.
very often, right?
Mhm.
Number two, you could go to the police. I doubt, and I can't speak for where you live. You gave us no indicators, but I'm pretty sure in most, if not all states, the statute of limitations on a 20-year theft is wore out. I
Mhm.
think only murder and maybe some sexual offenses have a no statute of limitation things.
Mhm.
If this is 20 years ago, the cops would say, well, nothing we can do.
Yeah, prove it or something.
But, it might make you feel better that you tried.
Mhm.
I can't discourage you. You know, I guess maybe if we're honest, you better do some research because if there is no statute of limitations, you might want to be prepared for what that would do to your life.
Yeah, and like,
Right.
are you financially able, yeah, to pay that money back? Like if you're doing well in
With
life
interest,
and with
20 years of
interest, and
interest.
I do believe that you reap what you sow. And so, even if you've lost that money somewhere down the road, you know what I mean? Like if either your car broke down and you had to pay, $5,000-$6,000 to have the car fixed, and then something happened in your house and you had to pay all this money to have, this fixed. So that money is going, or somebody stole from you at some point, or did you lose $1,000 on the ground that fell out of your pocket when you're out shopping or something, or at a football game. So I do feel like you paid for it somewhere down the road in those 20 years, don't
And
you
that's
think?
that's possible. That's possible. And again, we're not trying to rescue people, but I think, yeah, I mean, even as Christians, we believe in you reap what you sow. But it's also possible that God is holding back that seed, the sowing of that seed that you planted. But yeah, for the most part, you may, it's just something for him to consider, right?
Yeah.
Okay. The third thing is what you could do is you could, and I'm sure he's thought of these things, you could decide to pay that money forward. So you could say, well, I'm never going to turn myself in because I don't want to face that.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe if I give it to somebody in need,
Mm-hmm.
or, find out a way to support somebody like a young store owner. So if I
Mm-hmm.
just walked in and said, are you struggling? Yeah, we're starting to pick up, but I can barely pay the light bill. Well, here's $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to know my name. I'm just paying that forward from some stuff that happened way back when.
Mm-hmm.
Or pay
Mm-hmm.
it forward in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, the fourth thing is, and of course, there's always more. I had somebody correspond with me last week, and we'll talk about that. But you could do nothing.
Mm-hmm.
You could continue to just let it weigh on you, but at least you got it out. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
that will kind of relieve some of the conscience that you're experiencing, or the guilt
Mm-hmm.
you're experiencing, whatever word you want to
Mm-hmm.
use. Of course, there could be 5 or 6 more. We're just kind of just brainstorming here.
Yeah.
Last week we had we had a couple of people. Somebody told me, well, I could think of 6 or 7 other things. We were not trying to make an exhaustive list. Okay. We were just trying to get her on the path to thinking about her
Mm-hmm.
decisions,
Mm-hmm.
not just emotionally making the first decision out of this wave of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
And we would ask the same of this person.
Mm-hmm.
We also had somebody last week who responded and said, how do you call yourself a Christian? Blah, 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 blah. If you didn't tell this person to go and confess it immediately. And I think what we told that person was, well, we want you to give it to God. And if God wants you to
Mm-hmm.
confess it, that's what you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
Some Christians
Yeah.
may disagree with me. They may say that I think what this person says, weren't you a minister and now you are
Mm-hmm.
telling people to hold it back? No, I'm not telling people that.
Mm-hmm.
This person, by the way, is not a Christian. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would apply either way, but giving it to God
Mm-hmm.
and allowing him to do that, because again, as we talked, sometimes going to a victim, and you said it best, Melissa, and reopening the wound may be worse than them not knowing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, when somebody says, well, as a Christian, you're supposed to confess your sins. Well, she did.
Mm-hmm.
The Bible says to confess your sins to one another. So she did.
Mm-hmm.
She confessed it to a whole audience of people, not just us.
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe you could kind of weigh that before you start sending us these emails, proving the point that we're not religious Christians and you are, right? Not to be a Pharisee to the Pharisees, but I'm good at that. So with you, D, you're not a Christian. And so, but you asked about this God thing. That's where we believe grace comes from, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because if God could give grace to this Zacchaeus and he can give grace to this guy on the cross,
Mm-hmm.
he can definitely give grace to you. What I would suggest you do is weigh your heart.
Mm-hmm.
Could you confess to her and be willing to accept whatever comes?
Mm-hmm.
Could you start that journey and be willing to wear this burden for the rest of your life in order for her to be better off?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't know if a lot of people heard what I just said,
Mm-hmm.
but let's say, for example, I took something of value from my grandmother once upon a time
Mm-hmm.
and helped her look for it.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, X amount of years later, I have this wave of conscience and I need to tell her. I mean, it is driving me nuts. So I haven't talked to my grandma in a month or two, but I'm going to go tell her.
Mm-hmm.
And I call my mom and I say, hey, have you seen grandma lately? Oh, I was just going to call you. She's in the hospital. She's very sick. Like she's very weak. She's getting some bed rest. They're going to keep her overnight. Do I go tell her?
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, Grandma, I know you're sick and you're clinging to life, but I have to get this off my chest for me to be okay. You see, at this season of life may not be the time to tell her because you may cause her to lose hope. You see, sometimes we have to look at the reality of this, and that's why you take it to God if you're a Christian. Because if the conscience is eating you alive and you feel like you got to go spill the beans right away, you're acting out of the emotion, not out of the right or wrong. And remember, what got you in the first place was not acting out of the right and acting out of the wrong. And so you have to have a source, like kind of like a standard, like where you say, when is the right time? When is it the right thing to do? And when is it the wrong thing to do? Confessing it to one another is what the Bible says. And when you do that, which you've done today, even though you're not a Christian, D, you've put it out there. And people who are Christians are listening to this and can pray for you. And even people that aren't, I think, will resonate with you. And they're sending you kind of their positive energy. Like, I've been there, I've done that. A lot of people go to AA and they may not be religious, but they believe in a God of their own understanding, and they all support each other, even though not everybody in the room is religious. And so it's kind of that same support type network, which is what we're trying to create here, if we're honest, right? And so, D, you have some choices to make, my friend. But I do know this. I have a ton of grace in my heart for you. I'm nobody. I mean, you want it from somebody higher than me, but I feel for you, man. And I don't justify what you did. That was the wrong thing. Melissa said it best. Well, let's call it robbery, but it is. It's actually like a white collar kind of crime. It's embezzlement. It's theft. It's whatever white collar things we do. They're all robbery, right? In the end. So I'm glad you said that, Melissa. But I have empathy for you, D, because it's been eating you alive for 20 years, man.
So sometimes that's enough.
Yeah.
You've paid your dues. Like 20 years of it eating you up is enough. It's time to let it go.
So here's where the direction that we're encouraging you to go. It's not advice. You do one of those 4 choices. But if you're thinking about this, you've put it out there. How do you feel? If there's something more that you think you need, then my next choice to put in front of you to consider is, where does grace come from? It may not come from her. You may feel 20 times worse if you told her. And maybe that's still the right thing to do, and to feel worse in order to feel better. But I wouldn't expect grace from her. So if you're in need of grace, if you're in need of the burden being lifted from you, where does that come from? That's why we believe that it comes from Jesus. And if you don't want to believe in that, that's your choice. But I would just ask you to consider it. And you can always spark up a conversation with us. We hope to continue to be in conversation with everybody that writes in, calls in. But I would just ask that you consider that, because I've been around this son of ours more than 50 times. I've been around a lot of years underneath me, a lot of mistakes, a lot of grace given to me, and a lot of watching other people suffer through their decisions as a therapist and a minister. And I can tell you this, I have never found another source of grace besides God. And so
I agree.
Wrap your head around that, my friend. And let me just say this. You have friends here. We're here for you. Zero judgment here. I think it's the opposite, right? Like, man, let's help this guy get this burden off of him.
The other week, one of our employees, as we were headed to work, was listening to the podcast, and he, something about what you were saying, that we prayed for the young lady with the dilemma about the baby, the father of her baby, and that he, has done some some things in life that he regrets, but he did say, but he always stayed close to God, even though he, that one sheep that wandered off, he always felt that God was there. But he did say that when God did show himself to him to either make him realize something that he's doing wrong or get him out of trouble,
Uh-huh.
like, oh God, please, I promise, like a hangover. I would never drink again. Just, one. But he did say that he learned that when God shows up for him, that other people are praying for him.
Yeah.
Basically what I was trying to get to say. I was trying to.
Yeah. No, I get it. And we will be praying for you, Dee, even if you're not into that. That doesn't stop us from doing it for you. So great letter. Appreciate you reaching out, my friend. We are always here for you. There is literally no judgment in us at all. We just want you to get this off your chest and live burden free. And that's what God does. And in case let me just throw this last thing in there as well. Every person who has ever found God came with a burden.
Oh, yes.
Nobody in the world finds God like, my life is perfect, but I still think I need a God. All of us have found God through a sermon or through something where we were like, my life's okay, but there's something that I'm holding on to and I need to let it go. That's what this whole faith thing is about. So you wouldn't be the only one that found God through the worst mistake of your life. I think that's kind of how we get there. So
yeah.
I just want to remind everybody that this program is written, produced, and hosted by us, Anthony and Melissa Corelli. This program is copyright The Struggle LLC. Shout out to Todd Kazinka with Todd K Voiceovers. Remember, if you have a story of your own, please reach out to us. We need those stories. You could find us at GracefortheUnlovable@gmail.com to find out more about all that we do. You could find us at thestruggleseries.com. Look at that website. Might answer a lot of your questions. And don't forget that healing comes when secrets are shared in safe spaces. So may God bless you and bring you peace.
Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to the Grace for the Unlovable podcast. Please like, subscribe, and tell a friend. We will see you next time.